I was reviewing security footage from my doorbell camera when my blood ran cold. There was my brother Derek, pulling his 3 kids out of a taxi at 2 in the afternoon, handing the driver cash, and walking away as the cab drove off with his children still inside. The timestamp showed 4 days ago. My phone had been dead that entire weekend while I was camping, but Derek had told the driver the wrong address. Those kids never made it to my door. And now Detective Morrison was calling me about Derek. 3 weeks before that horrible discovery, I was living my quiet life in suburban Denver, finally feeling like I had things figured out. My name is Jarvis Thompson, 32 years old, and I work as a software engineer for a tech company downtown. After years of therapy, I had finally started setting boundaries with my family, especially with my older brother Derek. Derek called me on a Thursday evening, while I was debugging code for an important client presentation. His voice had that familiar edge to it, the one that meant he wanted something. "Jarvis, I need you to watch the kids this weekend," he said without even a hello. I felt my stomach tighten. Tyler was 8, Emma was 6, and little Sophie had just turned 4. Sweet kids, but Derek had been using me as his free babysitting service for years. "Derek, I can't. I have a massive deadline on Monday, and I'm not prepared to watch 3 young kids for an entire weekend." "What do you mean you can't? You always watch them." That was the problem. I always had. Every time Derek wanted to disappear for a weekend, every time he had a business opportunity that was really a poker game, every time he just didn't feel like being a father, he would drop those kids at my doorstep. Sometimes with notice, sometimes without. "I'm saying no, Derek. I have my own life and responsibilities." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then came the explosion. "Are you kidding me right now? After everything I've done for you? Remember freshman year of college when you got caught with beer in your dorm? Who convinced the RA not to report you? Remember when mom and dad were going to cut you off for dropping pre-med? Who talked them down?" Here it was, the guilt trip express. Derek had been holding that college incident over my head for 14 years. One time he had helped me, and somehow that translated into a lifetime of servitude. "Derek, that was 14 years ago. I've watched your kids at least 50 times since then. I've paid for their school supplies, their soccer uniforms, their birthday parties when you forgot. The debt, if there ever was one, has been paid. Family doesn't keep score, Jarvis." "You're right. Which is why you should understand that sometimes family members have their own obligations and can't drop everything. This is important. I have a major real estate conference in Vegas. This could change everything for my business." I knew Derek well enough to know that real estate conference meant gambling weekend. His wife Lauren had left him 6 months ago, and she'd been very clear about why. The gambling addiction had drained their savings, the neglect had traumatized the kids, and the lies had destroyed any trust they'd built in 9 years of marriage. "Derek, hire a babysitter. Ask Lauren's parents. There are other options. Lauren's parents hate me, and babysitters cost a fortune. Then maybe you shouldn't go to Vegas. I can't believe you're doing this to me. Mom always said family comes first. You know what? I'm going to call her right now and tell her how you're abandoning your nephews and nieces. See how proud she is of her precious baby boy then." My mother, 68, and recovering from hip surgery, didn't need this drama, but I was done being manipulated. "Do what you need to do, Derek." My answer is no. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. Setting boundaries with family was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but my therapist had been clear. If I didn't stop enabling Derek, he would never take responsibility for his life. The texts started immediately. First, pictures of the kids with captions like, "They really wanted to see Uncle Jarvis and Sophie, asked why you don't love them anymore." Then came the anger. "You're selfish. You'll regret this. Some brother you are." By Friday morning, I'd blocked his number temporarily. I needed to focus on my presentation, and I had a camping trip planned for the weekend. Solo camping in Rocky Mountain National Park. No cell service, just me and nature. It was my way of resetting after stressful work weeks. I left my apartment at noon on Friday, my phone already showing low battery. I figured I'd charge it in the car, but the charging cable had frayed without my noticing. By the time I reached the campsite, my phone was dead. No matter, I thought. The whole point was to disconnect. As I set up my tent in the wilderness, breathing in the pine-scented air, I had no idea that Derek was executing a plan that would change all our lives forever. While I was seeking peace in the mountains, he was about to commit an act so cruel and reckless that it would destroy everything he had left. The weather was perfect that weekend. Clear skies, temperatures in the 70s during the day, 40s at night. I hiked trails I'd been wanting to explore for months, wrote in my journal about boundaries and self-worth, and cooked simple meals over my camping stove. For 3 days, I felt free from the weight of family drama and manipulation. But freedom, I would soon learn, can be an illusion when you're connected to someone as toxic as Derek. Because while I was finding myself in the wilderness, 3 innocent children were living through a nightmare that would haunt them for years to come. That Friday afternoon, while I was driving toward the mountains with my dead phone, Derek was packing his kids' bags with the bare minimum. A change of clothes each, some snacks, their tablets. Tyler's inhaler, thank God he remembered that. Emma's stuffed rabbit that she couldn't sleep without. Sophie's pull-ups for nighttime, though he only packed 3 for what he was telling them would be a 4-day adventure. "Where are we going, Daddy?" Tyler asked, always the responsible oldest child, watching his father stuff items haphazardly into a duffel bag. "You're going to Uncle Jarvis's house. Won't that be fun? He has all sorts of games and movies for you." Emma bounced with excitement. "Really? Uncle Jarvis makes the best pancakes." "That's right, sweetheart. And he's so excited to see you all." The lies came so easily to him. Derek had already checked his flight status for Vegas. The poker tournament started at 8 that evening, and his new girlfriend Melissa was meeting him there. 26 years old, she had no idea Derek had 3 kids and an ex-wife. He'd told her he was a successful real estate mogul, not a failing agent who'd lost his license twice for ethics violations. Derek called the taxi service, specifically requesting a driver who wouldn't ask too many questions. He'd used cash for everything lately, trying to hide assets from Lauren's divorce attorney. When the yellow cab pulled up to his rental house, the one he'd moved to after Lauren kicked him out of their family home, Derek walked his children outside with their single bag. "Okay, kids, this nice man is going to take you to Uncle Jarvis's house. He lives at 4782 Pine Ridge Lane. You remember going there, right?" But Derek had never actually taken them to my new apartment. I'd moved 6 months ago, after the divorce started, wanting to be closer to work. Derek had the address wrong. I lived at 4782 Pine Ridge Court, not Lane. Pine Ridge Lane was 5 miles away in a different neighborhood entirely, a street filled with vacation rentals and empty investment properties. The taxi driver, an older man named Bill Stewart, looked uncomfortable. "Sir, are you not coming with them?" Derek handed him a $100 bill. "Their uncle is expecting them. He's right by the door waiting. 4782 Pine Ridge Lane. The kids know him well." "Uncle Jarvis loves us," Sophie chimed in, not understanding she was being abandoned. Bill looked at the money, then at the kids. Tyler was holding his sister's hands, trying to look brave. In the end, the $100 won. Bills were tight, and the man seemed confident. Derek kissed each child on the head, a Judas kiss if there ever was one. "Be good for Uncle Jarvis. Daddy has to work, but I'll see you soon." He didn't even wait for the taxi to leave. By the time Bill had the kids buckled in, Derek was already inside, grabbing his Vegas suitcase. His Uber to the airport was arriving in 10 minutes. The drive to Pine Ridge Lane took 20 minutes. Bill tried to make conversation with the kids, but Tyler was starting to feel uneasy. Something about the way Dad had rushed them out felt wrong. "Here we are," Bill announced, pulling up to 4782 Pine Ridge Lane, your uncle's house. The house was clearly empty. No cars in the driveway, overgrown lawn, a lockbox on the front door that real estate agents use for showings. But kids don't notice these things the way adults do. Bill knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again, louder. "Maybe Uncle Jarvis is in the bathroom," Emma suggested. Bill was already running late for his next fare. An airport run that would pay 3 times what Derek had given him. He knocked once more, then made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Okay, kids. Your dad said your uncle was expecting you. He must be inside and can't hear the door. You wait right here on the porch and he'll come get you in a minute." He set their duffel bag on the doorstep and left 3 children, ages 4, 6, and 8, alone at an empty house in a neighborhood where they knew no one. Tyler watched the taxi disappear around the corner. The brave face he'd been wearing for his sisters started to crack. "When is Uncle Jarvis coming?" Sophie asked, already needing to use the bathroom. "Soon," Tyler lied, not knowing what else to say. The sun was high in the sky, about 3 in the afternoon. They sat on the porch steps, Tyler in the middle with an arm around each sister. Emma clutched her stuffed rabbit. Sophie sucked her thumb, something she only did when scared. An hour passed. Then 2. The afternoon heat gave way to evening coolness. Sophie had an accident, wetting her pants because there was nowhere to go. Emma started crying. Tyler found a garden hose on the side of the house, and they drank from it when they got thirsty. As darkness began to fall, around 7:30 that evening, Margaret Sullivan was returning from her book club. 73 years old, she'd lived in the Pine Ridge Lane neighborhood for 15 years. She knew every family, every dog, every car that belonged. Which is why seeing 3 young children huddled on the doorstep of the empty Morrison property made her slam on her brakes. Margaret approached slowly, not wanting to scare them. Emma was crying quietly. Sophie was curled up asleep with her head on Tyler's lap, and Tyler himself looked like he'd been crying but was trying to hide it. "Hello there," Margaret said gently. "Are you children okay? What are you doing here?" "We're waiting for Uncle Jarvis," Tyler said, his voice hoarse. "Dad said he lives here, but I don't think this is right. This doesn't look like Uncle Jarvis's house." Margaret's heart broke. She knew the Morrison house had been empty for 3 months while the owners lived in Florida. "What's your uncle's last name, sweetheart?" "Thompson. Jarvis Thompson. And we're Thompson too. I'm Tyler. This is Emma and Sophie." Margaret didn't know any Jarvis Thompson in the neighborhood. She made a decision. "Let's call your dad, okay? Do you know his number?" Tyler recited it from memory, the way Derek had drilled into him in case of emergencies. Margaret dialed. It went straight to voicemail. Derek was already in the air, phone in airplane mode, drinking champagne in first class bought with money that should have gone to child support. Margaret tried 3 more times. Then she did the only thing she could do. She called 911. The police arrived within 15 minutes. Officer James Rodriguez and Officer Patricia Kim took one look at the situation and called Child Protective Services. The kids were processed as abandoned children. Photos were taken of Sophie's soiled clothes, Emma's tear-stained face, Tyler's brave attempt to seem okay. Jennifer Martinez from CPS arrived at 9 that night. She was experienced, compassionate, and thorough. The children were placed in emergency foster care with the Hendersons, a couple who'd been fostering for 10 years but were already overwhelmed with 5 other children in their care. That first night, Tyler lay awake on a strange bed in a strange house, listening to his sisters cry themselves to sleep, wondering what they had done wrong to make both Dad and Uncle Jarvis abandon them. Meanwhile, Derek was up $2,000 at the poker table, Melissa on his lap, telling everyone he was a free man with no responsibilities. His phone stayed off all weekend. The 18 missed calls from Colorado numbers didn't concern him. Probably bill collectors, he thought. He'd deal with them when he got back. Saturday morning came to the Henderson foster home like any other day, in a house with too many children and not enough resources. Tyler woke up to Sophie crying, confused about where she was. Emma wouldn't let go of her stuffed rabbit, holding it so tight her knuckles were white. "Where's Daddy?" Sophie kept asking. "Where's Uncle Jarvis?" Tyler, trying to be the strong big brother, made up stories. "They're coming to get us today. There was just a mix-up." But doubt was creeping in. Tyler was smart enough to know something was very wrong. Uncle Jarvis would never leave them sitting on a doorstep. And the way Dad had rushed them out, the way he'd kissed them goodbye, it felt final somehow. The Henderson house was chaos. 8 children in a 4-bedroom home, 2 biological and 6 fosters. Mrs. Henderson, though kind, was stretched impossibly thin. Mr. Henderson worked double shifts at the warehouse to make ends meet. Breakfast was generic cereal and powdered milk. Sophie wouldn't eat. She'd always been a picky eater, and stress made it worse. Emma sat silent, not her usual chatty self. Tyler forced himself to eat, knowing he needed strength to protect his sisters. The older foster kids weren't cruel, just hardened. They'd seen too many kids come through, learned not to get attached. But one boy, Marcus, age 12, had taken an instant dislike to Tyler. "Your parents dumped you just like mine did," Marcus said Saturday afternoon. "Get used to it, rich boy. Nobody's coming for you." Tyler's fists clenched. "Shut up. You don't know anything. I know you're here, aren't you? In foster care? That means nobody wants you." The fight happened fast. Marcus shoved Tyler. Tyler shoved back. Emma screamed. Sophie ran to hide behind a couch. By the time Mrs. Henderson separated them, Tyler had a bruised cheek, and Marcus had a bloody nose. "Tyler, we don't fight in this house," Mrs. Henderson said, but her voice was tired, not angry. She'd broken up 3 fights already that week. That night, Tyler heard Emma whimpering in her sleep. She'd wet the bed, something she hadn't done in 2 years. He helped her change quietly, not wanting to bother Mrs. Henderson or face the other kids' mockery. He gave Emma his blanket and slept without one, shivering in the cold room. Sunday was worse. Sophie developed a fever, probably from stress and the change in environment. Her temperature hit 102. Mrs. Henderson, required by law to seek medical attention for any fever over 101, had to take her to urgent care. The urgent care waiting room was packed. 3 hours they waited, Sophie burning up and miserable, crying for her daddy. When they finally saw a doctor, he prescribed antibiotics for an ear infection that had probably been brewing for days, but was exacerbated by stress. Jennifer Martinez, the social worker, came by Sunday evening for her mandatory 48-hour check-in. She found Tyler with a black eye, Emma completely withdrawn, and Sophie sick and lethargic. "Tyler, honey, have you remembered any other family? Grandparents? Aunts?" Tyler tried to think. "Mom's parents live in Boston, but we haven't seen them since Mom left. Dad's mom is sick, she just had surgery. I don't know their phone numbers." Jennifer made notes. She'd already run Derek Thompson through the system and found 3 prior reports of possible neglect. Neighbors calling about kids left alone. A teacher reporting Sophie coming to school in dirty clothes multiple days in a row. Lauren Thompson had filed for emergency custody 2 months ago, but Derek had been dodging the court summons. Meanwhile, in Vegas, Derek was living his best life. Saturday night, he'd won $5,000 in a tournament. He and Melissa celebrated with bottle service at a club. He posted Instagram stories, careful to tag the location as Real Estate Conference 2024 instead of the casino name. Sunday afternoon, between poker games, he finally turned on his phone. 18 missed calls from Colorado numbers he didn't recognize. 4 from a blocked number. 1 voicemail from Jennifer Martinez that he deleted without listening, assuming it was spam. He tried calling my number once, just to check that the kids were settled. When it went straight to voicemail, he assumed I was ignoring him out of spite. "Typical Jarvis," he muttered. "Always so dramatic." He turned his phone off again and headed back to the tables. Back in Colorado, Sunday night was the worst yet for the Thompson children. Sophie's fever spiked despite the medication. Emma had retreated so far into herself that she wouldn't even speak to Tyler. And Tyler lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was their life now. "Please, Uncle Jarvis," he whispered into the darkness. "Please come find us." Monday morning brought new challenges. The foster home's biological children returned from their weekend at their grandmother's house, making the space even more crowded. Sophie was better, but clingy, not letting Tyler out of her sight. Emma still wouldn't speak. Jennifer Martinez was working overtime on the case. She'd tracked down Lauren Thompson's attorney and learned the full scope of Derek's neglect. The gambling debts, the nights he'd left the kids alone to go to casinos, the emotional abuse disguised as discipline. She also discovered that Derek had told multiple people different stories about where his kids would be that weekend. He'd told his neighbor they were with their mother. He'd told his landlord they were at a camp. The web of lies was extensive and deliberate. Monday afternoon, while I was packing up my camping gear in blissful ignorance, Jennifer made a breakthrough. Going through Derek's prior addresses, she found my name as an emergency contact from the kids' old school, Jarvis Thompson, relationship, uncle. She called my number. Straight to voicemail, the phone still dead in my car. By Monday evening, she'd made a decision. Derek Thompson would be charged with child endangerment when he was located. The children would need placement, preferably with family, if any suitable relatives could be found. She started the paperwork for a warrant. Derek's flight landed Monday night at 11. He was down to 3,000 in winnings, having lost some back in a final desperate session. Melissa had already flown home separately, after a fight about him flirting with a waitress. He took an Uber home, still not turning on his phone. Tomorrow, he thought, he'd pick up the kids from Jarvis. He'd probably have to grovel a bit, maybe even pay him something for the babysitting. But Jarvis always caved eventually. Family was family, after all. He fell asleep in his clothes, not knowing that 5 miles away, his 8-year-old son was teaching his 6-year-old sister how to fight if anyone tried to separate them, while their 4-year-old sister whimpered in her sleep, calling for a daddy who had thrown them away like trash. Tuesday morning, I drove back from the mountains feeling refreshed and centered. The weekend had been exactly what I needed. 3 days of hiking, journaling, and sleeping under the stars had given me clarity about my boundaries with Derek and my commitment to living my own life. I arrived at my apartment around 10 in the morning, immediately plugging in my dead phone while I unpacked. As it powered on, the notifications began flooding in. Missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Text messages from area codes I'd never seen. Voicemails marked urgent. The most recent was from Detective Morrison, Boulder County Sheriff's Department, left just an hour ago. Mr. Thompson, this is Detective Morrison. We urgently need to speak with you regarding your brother Derek Thompson and his minor children. Please call me immediately at this number. My hands shook as I dialed. Detective Morrison answered on the first ring. Mr. Thompson? Jarvis Thompson? Yes, this is Jarvis. What's happened? Are the kids okay? Sir, when was the last time you saw your brother's children? Maybe 3 weeks ago? Detective, what's going on? Mr. Thompson, your brother's 3 children were found abandoned on Friday evening at a residence on Pine Ridge Lane. They told authorities they were waiting for you, but the address was incorrect. They've been in emergency foster care for 4 days. The room spun. I had to sit down. That's impossible. I told Derek I couldn't watch them. I was camping. He knew I was unavailable. Sir, we have evidence that your brother put the children in a taxi on Friday afternoon with instructions to take them to your address. However, he provided the wrong address. The children were left at an empty vacation rental. Oh my God. Are they hurt? Where are they now? They're safe but traumatized. Mr. Thompson, can you come to the Child Services office immediately? The children need to see a familiar face, and we need to verify some information. I was already grabbing my keys. I'm on my way. The drive to the Jefferson County Child Services building was a blur. My mind raced through the implications. Derek had actually done it. He'd abandoned his children because I wouldn't enable him anymore. And he'd been so careless, so reckless, that he'd sent them to the wrong address. Jennifer Martinez met me in the lobby. She was professional but warm, the kind of person who'd seen too much but hadn't let it harden her heart. Mr. Thompson, I'm Jennifer Martinez, the caseworker assigned to your nephews and nieces. Before we see the children, I need to ask you some questions. We sat in a small conference room. Jennifer pulled out a thick file with Derek's name on it. Were you aware that your brother has had 3 prior CPS reports filed against him? No. I knew things were bad with Lauren leaving, but I didn't know about any reports. Your brother has a pattern of leaving the children unattended. Neighbors have called multiple times. Were you aware he has a gambling addiction? Yes. It's why Lauren left him. It's destroyed their finances. Mr. Thompson, The children said their father told them you were expecting them. Is that true? Absolutely not. I explicitly told Derek I couldn't watch them this weekend. I was camping in Rocky Mountain National Park with no cell service. I have the camping permit, the receipt for the campsite. I can show you everything. Jennifer made notes. The children were found by a neighbor, Margaret Sullivan, around 9 Friday night. They'd been alone for approximately 6 hours. The youngest had soiled herself. They'd drunk water from a garden hose. The oldest, Tyler, has bruising from an altercation at the foster home where he was defending his sister. Tears burned my eyes. Can I see them? Yes. But Mr. Thompson, I need to prepare you. Emma has gone selectively mute from trauma. Sophie is dealing with regression. And Tyler is trying to be strong, but is clearly struggling with abandonment trauma. She led me down a hallway covered in children's artwork, presumably drawn by kids in situations just like my nephews and nieces. We entered a playroom where 3 small figures sat with another social worker. Tyler saw me first. His face crumpled. Uncle Jarvis? His voice was so small, so broken. I dropped to my knees and opened my arms. All 3 children ran to me. Tyler's tears soaked my shirt. Emma clung to me silently, her little body shaking. Sophie wrapped her arms around my neck and wouldn't let go. I'm here, I kept saying. I'm so sorry. I'm here now. We went to your house, but you weren't there, Tyler sobbed. We waited and waited. The lady said it was the wrong house. Dad said you wanted us to come, but you weren't there. Tyler, listen to me. Look at me. I held his face gently, seeing the bruise on his cheek. I didn't know you were coming. Your dad told the taxi driver the wrong address. I was camping with no phone. If I had known, I would have been there. Do you understand? I would never, ever leave you waiting. Margaret Sullivan arrived then, the elderly neighbor who'd found them. She was exactly what you'd picture as everyone's ideal grandmother. Silver-haired, kind eyes, wearing a cardigan despite the warm weather. You must be the uncle, she said. I'm so glad they have you. When I found them Friday night, they were so scared but so brave. This one, she touched Tyler's shoulder gently, was protecting his sisters like a little soldier. Margaret explained finding them, how Tyler had recited Derek's phone number from memory, how they'd drunk from the garden hose, how Sophie had been so dehydrated she could barely stay awake. In 40 years of living on that street, I've never seen anything like it. Those babies were just left like packages on a doorstep. Jennifer cleared her throat. Mr. Thompson, there's someone else here who wants to see the children. Lauren walked in. 6 months since I'd seen her, and she looked healthier than she had in years. The anxiety that had always shadowed her eyes was still there but managed. She'd lost weight, not in an unhealthy way, but like someone who'd stopped stress eating. Her clothes were professional, not the pajamas she'd lived in during the last year of her marriage. Mommy. Sophie flew to her mother. Emma followed, still silent but crying. Tyler hung back, torn between me and his mother. It's okay, I told him. Go to your mom. The reunion was beautiful and heartbreaking. Lauren held her children like she'd never let go again, tears streaming down her face. My babies, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. Mommy's so sorry. Jennifer gave them a few minutes, then gently intervened. Mrs. Thompson, as I explained on the phone, you'll need to present your custody petition to the emergency judge this afternoon. But given the circumstances and your completed rehabilitation program, I'm recommending immediate temporary custody to you. Lauren looked at me over the children's heads. Jarvis, I'm sorry. I should have known Derek would do something like this. I should have warned you. This isn't your fault, Lauren. None of this is your fault. Will you help me? With the hearing? Derek's been dodging service for 2 months. I need witnesses about his behavior. Whatever you need. I have 3 years of text messages showing his patterns of manipulation and neglect. I'll testify. I'll do whatever it takes. Jennifer's phone rang. She stepped aside to answer, her face growing grim as she listened. When she hung up, she looked at me. That was Detective Morrison. Your brother just used his credit card at a gas station in Henderson. He's back in Colorado. There's a warrant for his arrest for child endangerment. Mr. Thompson, do you have any idea where he might go? I thought about Derek's patterns, his habits, when stressed. He'll come to my apartment. When he's in trouble, he always comes to me to fix it. He probably thinks the kids are with me. Detective Morrison arrived within the hour to coordinate. The plan was simple. I would go home and wait. When Derek showed up, I would keep him talking while police moved in. Are you comfortable with this, Mr. Thompson? He might be aggressive when he realizes what's happening. I looked at Tyler's bruised face, at Emma's hollow eyes, at Sophie clinging to her mother like she might disappear. I'm more than comfortable. He needs to face what he's done. The rest of Tuesday was a whirlwind. Lauren's emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Wednesday morning. I gave a sworn statement about Derek's request for babysitting and my refusal. Margaret Sullivan gave her statement about finding the children. Jennifer presented her report with the prior CPS complaints and the current situation. Meanwhile, Derek was blissfully unaware of the storm about to hit him. He'd slept until noon, nursed his hangover with coffee and ibuprofen, then finally turned on his phone to arrange picking up the kids. The cascade of messages didn't immediately register. He deleted the voicemails without listening, assuming they were bill collectors. The missed calls from unknown numbers didn't concern him. It wasn't until he saw a text from his neighbor that he started to worry. Derek, the police were here looking for you. Something about your kids. Call me. Even then, his first thought wasn't concern for his children but anger at me. Jarvis must have called the cops, he thought. Probably some revenge for making him babysit. He'd straighten this out, guilt-trip me into dropping whatever complaint I'd made. He drove to my apartment building as the sun was setting, parking in visitor parking like he had 100 times before. He didn't notice the unmarked police cars positioned at both exits. Didn't see Detective Morrison in the lobby, pretending to check his mail. Derek walked to my door, like he owned the place, and pounded on it with his fist. I opened my apartment door to find Derek standing there, his face flushed with anger and alcohol. It was 11 at night, and he reeked of whiskey. His eyes were bloodshot, his expensive Vegas outfit wrinkled and stained. What the hell did you do? He started immediately. Why are the cops looking for me? What did you tell them? I stepped back, letting him push his way inside. My phone was already recording in my pocket, as Detective Morrison had instructed. 2 officers were in the stairwell, 2 more by the elevators. They would give me 5 minutes to get Derek's confession before moving in. Derek, where are your kids? He rolled his eyes. Don't play games with me. They're here. I know you took them after all. You always do. You just wanted to make me sweat a little first, right? Some kind of lesson about boundaries or whatever therapy crap you're on now. Derek, your kids aren't here. What are you talking about? I sent them here Friday. Taxi dropped them off. I pulled up the doorbell camera footage on my laptop. This is my front door camera, Derek. Friday, 2 p.m., when you claim the taxi brought them here. The timestamp showed an empty hallway. No kids, no taxi driver, no movement at all. Derek's face went pale. That's impossible. I gave the driver your address. What address did you give him? 478-2 Pine Ridge Lane. I live on Pine Ridge Court, Derek. Not Lane. You sent your children to the wrong address. The color drained from his face completely. For a moment I saw real fear in his eyes. Then, predictably, he shifted to anger and blame. Why didn't you tell me you moved? I told you 6 months ago. I sent you my new address. You never responded. But Derek, even if you had the wrong address, why did you put your kids in a taxi alone? Why did you abandon them when I explicitly told you I couldn't watch them? I didn't abandon them. I sent them to family. To you? After I said no, after I told you I was unavailable, you knew I was going camping. You did it anyway. Derek started pacing, his hands running through his hair. Where are they? Where are my kids? They spent 4 days in emergency foster care. Tyler got in a fight defending Emma. Sophie got so sick from stress she had to go to urgent care. Emma stopped talking completely. Foster care? His voice cracked. No, no, no. This is your fault. If you had just watched them like you always do. Stop. Listen to yourself. You put 3 young children in a taxi with a stranger and the wrong address because I wouldn't enable you anymore. You went to Vegas while your kids sat on an empty house's doorstep for 6 hours until an elderly woman found them crying in the dark. Derek's rage exploded. He grabbed a glass from my coffee table and threw it against the wall. You did this! You and your boundaries and your therapy. Family is supposed to help family. Is that what you told Tyler when he was protecting his sisters from older kids in foster care? Is that what Emma heard when she was so traumatized she stopped speaking? Is that what Sophie understood when she was burning with fever in a strange bed, crying for her daddy? Shut up. You don't have kids. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. What pressure, Derek? The pressure to win at poker? The pressure to impress your new girlfriend who doesn't even know you have children? His face twisted. How do you know about Melissa? Your Instagram stories. Posted from casinos while your children were missing. Yeah, Derek, they were missing. Because the address you gave didn't exist in the system as residential. The taxi driver left them at an empty vacation rental. I pulled up my laptop again, showing him the Instagram posts Jennifer Martinez had screenshot. Derek with champagne, Derek at the poker table, Derek with Melissa. All time-stamped, while his children were in crisis. You want to know the truth? Derek's voice turned vicious. Yeah, I knew you were camping. I didn't care. You needed to learn a lesson about saying no to me. About choosing your stupid job over family. There it was. The confession. You knew I wouldn't be there? I figured you'd come back early, when you realized I was serious. You always cave, Jarvis. Always. Since we were kids, I push, you fold. It's our dynamic. So you endangered your children to teach me a lesson? They were never in danger. They were going to family. To an empty house, Derek. You didn't even verify the address. You didn't even make sure I'd be there. You just dumped them and left. I was teaching you about consequences. No, you were gambling in Vegas. You turned off your phone so you wouldn't have to deal with any problems. You abandoned your children because they were inconvenient to your plans. Derek lunged at me then, grabbing my shirt. You're going to fix this. You're going to tell the cops it was a misunderstanding. You're going to make this go away like you always do. No, Derek. I'm done enabling you. I'm done being your safety net while you free fall through life destroying everyone around you. I'll ruin you. I'll tell Mom you did this. I'll tell everyone you called CPS on your own family. You'll be the villain in this story. I didn't call CPS, Margaret Sullivan did, when she found 3 abandoned, terrified children on a doorstep at 9 p.m. But you know what? I would have called them. Because those kids deserved better than what you gave them. They're my kids. Not anymore. The door burst open. Detective Morrison entered with 2 uniformed officers. Derek Thompson, you're under arrest for 3 counts of child endangerment. Derek tried to run. It was pathetic, really. He made it 2 steps before Officer Rodriguez had him on the ground. The handcuffs clicked with a finality that seemed to echo through the apartment. Jarvis, tell them this is a mistake, Derek screamed. Tell them. Mr. Thompson, you have the right to remain silent, Detective Morrison began. This is your fault, Jarvis. You did this. You destroyed our family. As they led him away, Derek kept screaming threats and accusations. The neighbors opened their doors to watch. Mrs. Chen from across the hall shook her head sadly. She'd heard Derek's yelling before during his visits. Detective Morrison stayed behind after the uniforms took Derek away. You did the right thing, Mr. Thompson. That recording will be very helpful. The confession that he knew you were unavailable and did it anyway, that's huge. What happens now? He'll be booked tonight. Bail hearing tomorrow, but given the severity and his previous reports, I doubt he'll get released. The prosecutor will likely add charges. We found evidence of fraud at his real estate office, and the IRS has been notified about unreported gambling winnings. After Morrison left, I sat in my quiet apartment, the broken glass still glittering on the floor. I thought about Derek and me as kids. He'd always been the golden child, charming and confident. I'd been the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who cleaned up his messes. When had it gone so wrong? When had his confidence become narcissism? When had his charm become manipulation? When had I become his enabler instead of his brother? My phone buzzed with a text from Lauren. The kids are asleep. They had dinner and baths. Tyler asked if you could come to the hearing tomorrow. All three want you there. I wrote back immediately. I'll be there. Whatever you need. Another text. This one from my mother. Derek called from jail. Says you had him arrested. Is this true? I called her instead of texting. She needed to hear the truth, all of it. The abandoned children, the foster care, the Instagram posts from Vegas. She cried, but not the tears I expected. I always knew, she whispered. Deep down, I knew something was wrong with how he treated those babies. But he was my firstborn, my Derek. I made excuses. I enabled him too, didn't I? We all did, Mom. But not anymore. The next morning, the news hit social media. Derek's mugshot was on the local news website. His real estate company released a statement distancing themselves from him. Melissa, the Vegas girlfriend, posted on Instagram that she had no idea he was a father and was disgusted by his actions. The house of cards Derek had built on lies and manipulation was collapsing, and he had no one to blame but himself. Wednesday morning's custody hearing was scheduled for 9 o'clock. I arrived at the courthouse at 8:30, wearing my only suit. Lauren was already there with her attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Reeves who specialized in custody cases involving abuse and neglect. The children weren't required to attend, but they were waiting in a child-friendly room with Jennifer Martinez, who would bring them in only if the judge requested. Tyler had insisted on wearing his best clothes, a button-up shirt that was slightly too small and khakis that Lauren had bought him that morning. Even in crisis, he was trying to be the perfect son, the one who could fix everything. Derek's public defender, a young man named Christopher Dalton, who looked fresh out of law school, seemed overwhelmed. Derek was brought in wearing Orange County jail coveralls, his hands cuffed in front of him. He'd been denied bail due to flight risk and the severity of the charges. Judge Catherine Wheeler presided, a woman known for her no-nonsense approach to family law. She'd been on the bench for 20 years and had seen it all. We're here for an emergency custody hearing regarding the minor children Tyler, Emma, and Sophie Thompson, she began. Mr. Derek Thompson, you are currently charged with 3 counts of child endangerment. How do you plead? Christopher Dalton stood. Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty and requests this hearing be postponed until the criminal matters are resolved. Denied. The children's welfare cannot wait for criminal proceedings. Mrs. Thompson, please present your case. Patricia Reeves was brilliant. She presented a timeline of Derek's neglect going back 2 years. Photos of the children from Friday night, Tyler's bruised face from the foster home, medical records of Sophie's stress-induced fever. She played the doorbell camera footage I'd provided, showing the empty hallway when Derek claimed the children had been delivered. Then came the witnesses. Jennifer Martinez testified about the prior CPS reports, the pattern of neglect, the trauma the children displayed. Margaret Sullivan, dignified in her floral dress, described finding 3 terrified children abandoned like packages. Your Honor, in my 73 years, I've never seen such callous disregard for children's safety. They were babies, left alone in the dark, drinking from garden hoses. When it was my turn, I told the truth, every detail. The years of enabling, the pattern of Derek using the children as pawns, the gambling addiction that drained their college funds. I provided 3 years of text messages showing Derek's manipulation and neglect. He told me explicitly that he knew I was unavailable, I testified. He said he did it to teach me a lesson about boundaries. He endangered his children to punish me for saying no. Derek's defense was pathetic. Christopher Dalton tried to argue it was a misunderstanding, a miscommunication about addresses. But when Derek took the stand, his narcissism destroyed any sympathy he might have garnered. They're my children, he said, his voice dripping with entitlement. I can decide where they go and when. Jarvis has watched them dozens of times. I assumed he'd changed his mind when he cooled down from our argument. Mr. Thompson, Judge Wheeler interrupted, did you verify your brother's availability before leaving your children? I don't need to verify anything. He's their uncle. Family helps family. Did you ensure someone would be at the address you provided to the taxi driver? I gave the address I had. Did you attempt to contact your brother or anyone else when you arrived in Las Vegas? I was at a professional conference. I couldn't be disturbed. Judge Wheeler's expression was granite. Mr. Thompson, the court has reviewed your Instagram posts from that weekend. You were not at a professional conference. You were gambling and partying while your children were in foster care. The investigation had uncovered more than just the abandonment. Detective Morrison testified about the fraud discovered at Derek's real estate office. 3 families had come forward saying Derek had stolen their earnest money deposits, nearly $60,000 total. The IRS had found unreported gambling winnings of over $200,000 in the past 3 years. Derek's own mother testified against him. My mother, frail but determined, took the stand. I love my son, she said, tears streaming down her face, but he's been enabled his whole life, including by me. Those children deserve better. They deserve safety and stability and love that isn't conditional on being convenient. The final blow came from Tyler himself. Judge Wheeler had him brought in privately to her chambers with just the court reporter and Jennifer Martinez present. When she returned, her face was grim. The minor child Tyler has disclosed multiple incidents of neglect extending back years. Being left alone overnight with his sisters at ages 6, 4, and 2. Being told to lie to teachers about bruises. Being given NyQuil to make them sleep when Mr. Thompson wanted to go out. Derek stood up, handcuffs clanking. That's a lie. Tyler's lying. Jarvis coached him. Sit down, Mr. Thompson, or you'll be held in contempt. Christopher Dalton pulled Derek back down, whispering urgently in his ear. Judge Wheeler continued. The court has also received a report from Tyler's teacher, Mrs. Amanda Foster, documenting 7 incidents where Tyler came to school in the same clothes multiple days in a row, 4 incidents of him asking for extra food to take home for his sisters, and 1 incident where he fell asleep in class and admitted his father had been out all night and he'd stayed awake to watch his sisters. Patricia Reeves presented Lauren's rehabilitation. 6 months of therapy for anxiety and depression caused by Derek's abuse. Stable employment as a marketing coordinator. A 2-bedroom apartment in a good school district. Letters from her therapist, her employer, and her landlord, all testifying to her stability and readiness to parent. Your Honor, Patricia concluded, Mrs. Thompson has done the work to heal from the trauma Mr. Thompson inflicted. She's ready to provide the stable, loving home these children deserve. Judge Wheeler didn't even retire to deliberate. Mr. Derek Thompson, this court finds you guilty of gross neglect and endangerment of your minor children. Your parental rights are hereby suspended pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. Based on the evidence presented, this court anticipates those rights will be permanently terminated. Derek exploded. You can't do this. They're my kids. Jarvis, you did this. You destroyed my life. Mr. Thompson, you destroyed your own life. You chose gambling over your children. You chose Vegas over their safety. You chose revenge over responsibility. These are the consequences of your choices. Mrs. Lauren Thompson is granted full temporary custody to be reviewed in 6 months. Mr. Jarvis Thompson is approved as a support person and emergency guardian. Mr. Nonter, Derek Thompson will have no contact with the minor children until further order of this court. She looked directly at Derek. Mr. Thompson, you committed the ultimate betrayal. You abandoned your children to strangers to punish your brother for having boundaries. You gambled while they suffered. You posted on social media while they cried in fear. This court has seen many cases of parental neglect, but rarely such calculated cruelty. Derek was dragged out screaming threats. He'd see us all destroyed. He'd get revenge. He'd make us pay. The bailiffs had to use force to remove him from the courtroom. In the hallway afterward, Lauren hugged me tight. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. For standing up to him. For being there for the kids. Tyler, Emma, and Sophie ran to us. Emma finally spoke. Just one word. Uncle. It was enough to break my heart all over again. The criminal trial was set for 3 months out, but Derek's empire crumbled immediately. His real estate license was suspended pending investigation. His brokerage fired him and sued him for the stolen escrow funds. The IRS froze his accounts and began asset seizure for tax evasion. His landlord evicted him from the rental house after learning about the child endangerment charges. His car was repossessed when it was discovered he'd been hiding it from the divorce asset division. Even his country club revoked his membership after complaints from other members. Within a week of the hearing, Derek Thompson went from successful real estate agent to unemployed, homeless, and facing decades in prison. All because he couldn't accept being told no. The children began therapy immediately. Tyler with a specialist in parentification and abandonment trauma. Emma with a play therapist who helped her find her voice again. Sophie with someone trained in early childhood trauma and regression. I committed to being there every step of the way, not out of obligation or guilt, but out of love. Real love, not the transactional manipulation Derek had taught us all growing up. The healing had begun, but Derek's downfall was just starting. 6 months after that horrible Friday when Derek abandoned his children, I stood in my backyard watching Tyler teach Emma and Sophie how to code on a tablet. We were having our weekly Saturday barbecue, a tradition that had begun as soon as Lauren got custody and had become the cornerstone of our family's healing. Tyler had joined the junior coding club I volunteered with at the community center. At first, he'd been withdrawn, suspicious of adult attention. But gradually, as weeks turned to months, he'd begun to trust again. His latest project was a simple game where a character collected stars while avoiding obstacles. He'd named the character Survivor. Emma was painting at the picnic table, her art therapy having evolved into a genuine passion. Her paintings had progressed from dark scribbles to vibrant landscapes. Today she was painting our backyard, making sure to include everyone. Lauren flipping burgers, me pushing Sophie on the swing, Tyler at his tablet, and even Mrs. Chen, from my apartment building, who'd become an honorary grandmother to the kids. Sophie, now 4.5, had bounced back the fastest, as young children often do with proper support. Her night terrors had stopped after 3 months of therapy. She no longer asked when Daddy was coming back. Instead, she'd attached herself to the stable adults in her life. Lauren, me, and surprisingly, Margaret Sullivan, who visited every Sunday with homemade cookies and endless patience for Sophie's elaborate tea parties. Lauren had flourished in her recovery. The marketing coordinator position had turned into a promotion to marketing manager. She'd joined a support group for survivors of narcissistic abuse and had even started dating again, a kind accountant named Robert, who understood that the kids came first and never pushed for more than Lauren was ready to give. "Uncle Jarvis," Sophie called from the swing. "Push me higher. I want to touch the clouds." As I pushed her, laughing at her squeals of delight, I thought about Derek and felt something unexpected: pity. He was serving 5 years in state prison after pleading guilty to reduced charges. The full extent of his crimes had been staggering. Beyond the child endangerment, there had been 3 counts of fraud, 2 counts of embezzlement, and 5 counts of tax evasion. The IRS had seized everything: his hidden bank accounts, his cryptocurrency, which he thought was untraceable, even his collection of luxury watches he'd hidden in a storage unit. The real estate families he'd defrauded had won civil judgments, totaling $300,000. He'd have wage garnishment for the rest of his life, once he got out. His real estate license was permanently revoked. He was banned from working in any fiduciary capacity. But the worst punishment, in Derek's mind, was the complete termination of his parental rights. The judge had been unequivocal. Derek Thompson was no longer legally the father of Tyler, Emma, and Sophie. He had no rights to contact them, to see them, to make any decisions about their lives. He'd sent one letter from prison, addressed to me, full of manipulation and blame. I'd returned it unopened, with a cease and desist letter from Lauren's attorney. That was the last we'd heard from him. Our parents had divorced shortly after Derek's conviction. Mom couldn't forgive Dad for enabling Derek all those years, for always making excuses, for teaching him that consequences were for other people. She lived in a senior community now, active in the grandmother's support group for relatives of incarcerated individuals. She saw the kids every week, and had become the grandmother they needed: present, stable, and boundaried. "Dinner's ready," Lauren called, and everyone gathered around the picnic table. Robert had arrived with his contribution, a homemade potato salad that the kids actually ate, a minor miracle given their pickiness. As we ate, Tyler cleared his throat. "I want to make a toast," he said, his voice steady in a way it hadn't been 6 months ago. We all raised our lemonade glasses. "To family," Tyler said. "Not the family you're born with, but the family you choose. The family that shows up. The family that stays. To Mom, for getting better and coming back for us. To Uncle Jarvis, for standing up to Dad and standing up for us. To everyone here, for showing us what real love looks like." Emma added quietly, "To second chances." Sophie, not to be left out, shouted, "To cookies," which made everyone laugh. As we clinked glasses, I caught Lauren's eye. She nodded, a silent acknowledgement of how far we'd all come. After dinner, as the sun set and the kids played in the fading light, Margaret Sullivan pulled me aside. "You saved those children," she said simply. "You saved them, Margaret. You found them. I found their bodies. You saved their souls. You showed them that standing up to abuse isn't betrayal, it's love." My phone buzzed with a notification from my blog. I'd started writing about our experience, about breaking cycles of family manipulation and abuse. The latest post, "When No Means No, Setting Boundaries That Save Lives," had gone viral. Thousands of comments from people sharing their own stories of family manipulation, of being guilted for having boundaries, of enabling destructive behavior in the name of family loyalty. Sarah, my girlfriend whom I'd met at a survivors support group 3 months ago, read some comments aloud. This one says, "Your story gave me the courage to stop enabling my sister's addiction. Thank you for showing that boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary." Sarah understood the journey because she'd lived her own version of it with an alcoholic mother who'd used guilt as a weapon. We took things slow, both of us carrying trauma that demanded respect and patience, but it was healthy, stable, and real, in a way no relationship in my life had ever been before. As darkness fell and we moved inside, Tyler pulled me aside. "Uncle Jarvis, do you think Dad thinks about us?" I considered lying, giving him the comfortable answer. But these kids had been lied to enough. "I don't know, Tyler. But here's what I do know. Whether he thinks about you or not doesn't determine your worth. You're amazing because of who you are, not because of who your father is or isn't. I don't want to be like him. You're not. You know how I know? Because you protected your sisters. Because you put their needs first. Because even when you were scared and alone, you chose love over abandonment. You're already twice the man your father ever was." Tyler hugged me then. This 8-year-old boy, who'd been forced to grow up too fast but was slowly learning to be a kid again. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and I was cleaning up, I found a note Emma had left for me. In her careful handwriting it said, "Thank you for saying no. If you had said yes, Dad would never have gotten in trouble, and we would still be scared all the time. Your no saved us." I kept that note. Framed it, actually. Put it on my desk next to a photo from today's barbecue. All of us together, laughing, healing, chosen family bound not by obligation but by love. The story could have ended differently. I could have caved to Derek's manipulation, watched the kids that weekend, enabled him one more time. He would have kept escalating, kept neglecting them, kept using them as pawns in his games. Eventually, something worse would have happened. Maybe one of them would have been seriously hurt. Maybe the neglect would have turned to active abuse. Maybe they would have grown up thinking that love meant being used, that family meant having no boundaries, that their only value was in what they could do for others. Instead, my no became the catalyst for change. It forced Derek's hand, exposed his cruelty, and ultimately freed his children from a lifetime of manipulation and neglect. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Boundaries aren't walls that keep love out. They're gardens where healthy relationships can grow. Derek thought he could force me to enable him forever, but his entitlement became his destruction. The kids learned that real family doesn't abandon you on doorsteps or use you as pawns. Lauren learned that leaving an abuser doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. Our mother learned that enabling isn't love, it's complicity. And I learned that standing firm in your truth, even when family calls you selfish, even when they threaten and rage and blame, is how you break generational cycles. It's how you stop the patterns that destroy lives. It's how you save the next generation from repeating the same painful dance. Those 4 days of horror became the catalyst for healing our entire family tree. Derek lost everything trying to control everyone. His children, his freedom, his fortune, his family. He sits in a prison cell now, alone with the consequences of his choices. But in his downfall, the rest of us found freedom. Freedom from manipulation. Freedom from guilt. Freedom from the toxic cycles that had defined our family for generations. The children are thriving. Tyler made the honor roll last quarter. Emma's art was featured in a local gallery showing of young artists. Sophie started kindergarten and made 3 best friends on the first day. They're in therapy, yes, but they're also in love. Loved by their mother, who fought through her own trauma to become the parent they deserve. Loved by me, their uncle who chose them over enabling their abuser. Loved by a community of people who stepped up when their father stepped out. This Thanksgiving, our table was full. Lauren, the kids, Robert, my parents, separately but civilly, Sarah, Margaret Sullivan, Jennifer Martinez, who'd become a family friend, and even Bill Stewart, the taxi driver who'd been tormented by guilt until we reached out to tell him it wasn't his fault. Tyler gave the blessing, and his words stay with me. Thank you for the hard times that led to better times. Thank you for the people who said no when they needed to, and yes when it mattered. Thank you for second chances and new beginnings. Thank you for showing us that family isn't about blood, it's about choice, and we choose each other. We choose each other every day. Despite the trauma, because of the healing, through the journey from abandonment to belonging, Derek had been wrong about one thing above all. Family doesn't mean enabling destruction. Family means loving someone enough to stop enabling their harmful behavior, even when it costs you everything. My no to babysitting saved 3 children's lives. Not from death, but from something worse. A lifetime of trauma disguised as love, manipulation dressed as family loyalty, abuse hidden behind closed doors and fake smiles. They say the truth will set you free, but sometimes it's boundaries that unlock the cage. What boundaries do you need to set in your own life to protect yourself or others from toxic patterns? Have you ever had to choose between enabling someone you love and protecting innocent people caught in their destructive path? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own courage to say no. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others find it. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about overcoming family trauma, setting healthy boundaries, and breaking generational cycles. And if you know someone who needs to hear that their boundaries aren't selfish but necessary, share this story with them. Thank you for listening to our journey from abandonment to healing. Remember, your no might be the most loving word you ever say. Until next time, keep choosing healing, keep setting boundaries, and keep believing that you deserve relationships built on respect, not manipulation. You are worthy of love that doesn't require you to sacrifice your well-being. You are worthy of family that celebrates your boundaries instead of violating them. You are worthy of a life free from the chaos of someone else's choices. And sometimes, finding that life starts with just one word: no.